Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Cheyenne, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band Trivex, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations Podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Cheyenne, really. And best of luck to your endeavors for this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast. Alrighty then, George, my brother, it's a real fucking pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. How the hell you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me here. It's an absolute honor, and thanks a lot for your support, and thanks a lot for having me and Lucifer Child on your podcast.
It's, the honor is absolutely mine first and foremost. We recently shared the festival bill together. Well, I say recently, time kind of goes fast. It was actually last April, so it's almost a year now.
Time flies.
It does. But I think we had slightly conflicting schedules. We were playing the show and then we had to fly like 3 hours after we came off stage. So we had to run away straight away, and then you guys were going to be there the next day. So unfortunately, we missed each other there. But yeah, man, I've been really looking forward to catching up with you on here. I've actually been really, really looking forward to having you on the show. And I don't know if you remember this, George, but we met, I think the first time you and I met was around, I'm going to tell you, it was October 2017 at the Mammoth Fest at Brighton. I don't know if you have any memory of that at all.
Hell, really?
Yes.
Fuck. You remember that show? Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
You were playing. You were performing with Trivex there.
Trivex wasn't actually playing at that show, but I was there just to kind of support a few of my friends. Interestingly enough, that was actually also the first time I ever saw Rotting Christ perform as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm deeply. My sincere apologies. I cannot remember our meeting there, but I remember that it was a hell of a night. It was very interesting because the Tudor set was incredible.
That's right. Yeah, that's when they had the bass player from Bathory doing the stuff with them.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, this was it was I was super excited when I hear that, and when the guy showed up in the dressing room, like, "Hey, how are you guys?" Like, fuck, this guy recorded the first Bathory. Fuck.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, crazy, 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 and a hell of a night. It was a beautiful show. It was a very nice underground event. I loved it.
For sure, yeah. I think if I remember right, you guys were headlining, but it was like, even though it was a festival, it was kind of like it was an intimate venue, and I remember,
Exactly.
you know, like obviously knowing Rotten Christ and obviously you guys for many years, but then actually seeing it in person and being like, wow, fuck, this is a pretty cool show, you know, and you know, I learned a lot.
Thanks,
And
man.
by the way, just before anything, there's, you know, the little bracket here. If you don't remember me, that's totally fine because I was about 40 kilos heavier in 2017. So I've changed a lot
Oh,
since
really?
then. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a lot of fucking hard work.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy,
Hard
man.
work,
That's crazy,
hard
man.
work, and
Congratulations.
consistency. Thank you, thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it, man. Listen,
Yeah.
George, your newest record, man, the Illuminant with Lucifer's Child. Super fucking impressed. Really, really cool. Just love the sound, love the direction of the band. You know, I really feel like you guys have kind of crossed a new threshold, whilst I think maintaining that traditional pureness and the essence of the band. What can you tell us about this record, man, with it coming up?
Um, to begin with, thanks a lot for the recognition. It was a lot of hard work there. I really appreciate your words, as I know that you follow the band and you might have heard some material or previous records.
Of course,
Um,
of course I have.
so it took about 7, 8 years to make a new album. I prefer taking my time when it comes to composing. It's not something I want to push. I push myself and just get into the studio every like 1 or 2 years just to deliver an album and tour. This is not the mentality of the band. Um, the Illuminant was actually let's say we tried to in a way ruin what we already make and start something fresh, something new, and to discover, you know, a new element that could make the band step forward, make something new and progress. What does not progress dies. This is how I see it.
Of
And
course.
what I mean when I say ruin is not like not ruining our identity or anything like that, but we want to make it's quite difficult to maintain the identity you try to have as a band and also create something new. And this is something that brings, you know, there's a small conflict there. You might have a nice riff or a cool idea, but it ends up being in a trash can because it sounds like every other riff you make. So the harder work here was to approach something new without missing our identity, both lyrically, if I can say, and spiritually, of course, because lyrics are completely connected, and what we say is absolutely linked to real life experiences, and this is how we parallelize our concept and themes. And also musically, it's something that you need to, as I said before, make some really hard work. I don't know if people or someone who listens to the record will understand the hard work, but at least I hope he enjoys listening the whole record, which is a concept album. Each song is it's a unique unity that links to the next song, to the next song, to the next song. So this is how actually it got built. A storytelling record, and musically, I think it's the darkest, fastest, and most aggressive record we made. I think this album consists all the psychology we all the input we had since the last album release, which was 2018, where we released
That's right.
Order. Yeah. And since that time, lots of things happened in our lives, lots of things happened in the world, and which affected us. And I mean, you know how it is. We've been through 2 years of total fucking absence with COVID, and then this made things even harder to be able to present your music. Things got tighter, more pressure, etc., etc. So this album is like a amalgama, as we say in Greek. Like this is the amalgama of all this time and all these deep thoughts and the creation. And I think it's I think it's the best album we are putting out.
Yeah, I can certainly see that being the case, actually, you know, and I'm I must have confessed, I haven't had the opportunity to read the lyrics yet, just simply because they're not out yet. But I would love to read through that. It's interesting to me. So this, as you said, is going to be a concept album. What I can at least certainly comment from my end, which, you know, and I appreciate what you're saying about the hard work and effort that's gone into it. Having had a few albums under my own belt, I can certainly tell how much work it actually takes for an album to be made, for someone to just listen to it on Spotify, you know, at the click of
so simple, but
yeah. And one thing I really want to commend you on is concept, songwriting, all of that aside, I am really fucking impressed with the production on this one. The sound and the snare. Fuck, it's hard getting a good snare sound, man, but that's so good on this record. Really
Thanks,
cool
man.
sound. Yeah.
Thank
you know
man.
how it
Thank
is.
You.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I say, you know how it is, because it's like, you know, you listen to new records and then there's always like, there's something there that's kind of like, oh, you know, I like the songwriting, but the production's a bit like, eh. But
this does not support the songwriting. This is where you need to dig into the songs and really step away and try to identify the character you want to approach, and then start all the fucking madness with mixing and trying different things, which is quite hard because I hold a double role in the band. I do the songwriting, and I also work in the studio in every aspect. And I'm really happy you enjoy the snare. It took shitloads of time to find the perfect balance.
I can imagine, yes.
To have this 80s old like reverb big snare without being so plastic and so modern, you know. And this was the difficult part. Working in general in the production, this was the difficult part. Like, not sound plastic, but still powerful enough to support the songs and the compositions, you know. And this is the perspective and how you mix, like how I try to mix the new album of Lucifer's Child, like what the song needs, what the album needs, how harsh should it be, how raw should it be, what are we talking about? I mean, I couldn't make it sound like a pop album and at the same time talking about killing our inner ego and trying to revive from our ashes. And this is this is another conversation, but still I try to glue all this together at the sound. This is what I imagine when I mix. At least I don't know if someone can hear that, but I'm always imagining the lyrics and what are we saying now.
For sure.
heard.
And we will get more into that part of the conversation. Absolutely, you know, I think I see the opening for it there. But just to quickly I want to explore my curiosity just on the studio process itself a little bit first. Because I have had, obviously, other friends and musicians on here who basically do everything themselves, you know. So it's not just the recording, but then it's the engineering, then it's the mixing, mastering, all the different stuff involved with it, which I appreciate you have done for every Lucifer's Child record so far. The thing that, how do you know when it's finished? I know that's a tough question, but like, how do you know that, oh yeah, enough work, this is where we leave it?
You don't, you leave it when you're tired. No.
There we go. I suppose I saw that one coming.
Yeah. I mean, having a studio or a computer, I mean, you don't need lots of stuff to do that, but you need a lot of work and studying. And I really love that in our scene, that there are plenty of musicians that, besides being a musician, also care about their engineering and also practice into that and deliver their albums in a DIY way. I really love the DIY and work a lot, working and progressing on what you do with a band, and being able to work as an engineer. This is where you start helping yourself also with composing, but this is another chapter. So recording wise, and as you said, mixing wise, I don't know when it's a good let's say it's a good time to say that this is where we are now, and sounds good. Where when you've tried a few versions of mix, let's say for instance, you've made like some different tests, and then you say, this is a approach I'd like to keep, and maybe adjust some sort of guitars here, make it more harsh, or like make the snare a little bigger or thinner or whatever, you know. But you know when it's time. I mean, you feel it. You feel that a song when you play it after mixing, when you drive back home or when you have a beer. You know, this is what I do. You know, I go back home, I put my pods or turn on the hi-fi on and play the song. And when I start listening to it, after I try to forget what I've done and then start listening to it again, and then I say, okay, this is crap. I need to get back in the studio, or like, this is good. Like, hey, this is where we should stick. Let's stick with that and work a little bit around it, but not mix forever. You know, you can always. There is not the best mix. There is not the best mix. It's just a mix that fits the music, because there are so many different elements, so different tools to use nowadays, where you cannot produce something bad. You can just produce something different from a version to another.
Very
true.
Yes.
Yeah. So you shouldn't get into the rabbit hole and start digging and changing whatever. You're burning out. Just keep on the first mix that you love, and you say, okay, I like that, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I relate to that so fucking much, actually. I'm glad we're talking about this, because you know, it's kind of a fresh and relevant experience for me as well, because we just finished the new Trivex album, and we sent it to Osmos Productions. We only sent it to them about a month ago. Okay, so it's
congratulations, man. I really look forward to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah. Maybe you'll get to hear it after we end this conversation. But yeah, man, it was like, you know, it's fucking crazy, because you spend months and months and months working on it, and then is the songs. And as a musician, the thing that I sometimes struggle with is when you're listening to something, because you're so passionate about the music and the song itself, it becomes hard to listen to the details of the thing, because you already know how it's supposed to go. Right?
Exactly.
So instead of focusing on those little sounds, you instead just end up getting into the groove of the riff, and it's like, oh yeah. But then it's like, no, you're supposed to listen to these things, you know, and that's kind of like a bit of a balance I always kind of struggled with. And, you know, even with our second album, I was very happy when we recorded it, and then 3 years fucking later, I'm like, oh yeah, the vocals are too quiet, you know? After listening to it a million times.
This is, fuck, I couldn't agree more. This is like this is the only instance where I can say, fuck. Like when I listen to the album, like a few years later, like a couple of years later, and say, I don't like so much the snare. But when I'm mixing it, or like a few weeks later, I cannot judge it that much. Maybe that's that's a good thing, actually. Where if you start doing all this micromanaging all the time,
sure,
you get back into the fucking rabbit hole, and you never finish. You'll never finish.
Well, this is absolutely true. I think you put it perfectly, saying that there is no perfect mix. It's just different takes. And at the end of it, ultimately, the purpose of it is to have it work and basically serve the art itself.
Yes.
You know, because as I mentioned here, you know, I've had other friends of mine on the podcast, like James from Hell Ripper or Duggar from Misterming. Like both of those guys, they're examples of people who basically kind of do most things in the studio, including the mix. And it works for their style of bands, you know. But then if you were to take that and apply it on another band, maybe it wouldn't work as well. So again, at the end of the day, it's just about that. I would love to be able to mix my own albums, but I always feel like my my imagination kind of surpasses my skill way too much when it comes to that front, you know. So I think it's great. It's great that you've got that. So just kind of coming back into it, you mentioned to me earlier that obviously this is a concept album and that each song kind of relates to the other one. So would you be able to maybe unpack that a little bit and tell us a little bit more about the concept of the album itself?
So, of course. The album concept is how through ruining and destroying your ego, you rise spiritually. And this is quite common subject, I suppose, for many bands that share same interests in the occult and into Lucifer and Satanism, let's say, but not Satanism. It's not a word I really like. But let's say more esoteric, because you know, I feel that exposing all this inside information ruins the imagination of someone that will listen to the album. So as far as it goes with the lyrics, this is why they're more like storytelling lyrics, or more like philosophical phrases that they're in there. For instance, instead of having a very accurate description of a situation or whatsoever. So I prefer leaving someone to imagine at his own will, and let the river take him wherever it should take him and how he feels, considering lyrically and the concept of the album, of course. But to get back into the subject is actually the death of ego and rise through the ashes of our practices and the knowledge we gain through time. And this is something that doesn't stop, but this album focuses on this concept. So each song starts with, the whole album, each song is basically a description of a curse individually. So its title, if you check the titles, you might not identify that, but it's basically goes like that and so on. Every song is a step-by-step description, in a way, or storytelling of how what we gained from personal experiences and how we transform it into lyrics of the death of the ego. And it's actually parallelized. This concept is parallelized into true life, into true forms, and this is what I want to stick. Lyrics are something, as I said before, that it's quite subjective, and this is how I want to keep it when someone reads it. But at the same point, I really want to deliver an emotion for someone who reads the lyrics, or someone who reads the title of the album, to drive him somewhere deep and somewhere dark, because this is what we've done. Songwriting, and especially writing lyrics, which to me is more similar to poetry, is not something pleasant. It's not a pleasant experience, because you need to go into very dark places. At least this is how I found Lucifer's Child, the vessel to deliver all these feelings in a metaphorical way, which is not, as I said, pleasant, because you dig into life experiences that were not that pleasant. So that's it, basically. The Illuminant is how you kill your ego, and how you rise from the knowledge and the experiences you get in the life, and you reach the Illuminant state.
I can certainly get behind that concept, just even as a general framework for even life itself. There's the famous saying is that the seeds of life must first be planted into darkness, and then they will grow out of the dirt, and then that you suppose instead of life, even you could say the seeds of illumination and enlightenment. And there's definitely something to that through a lot of the struggle that we have in life, we are then transformed into a higher plane, with the death of the ego, of course, being a common part of that. I'm not necessarily an anti-ego person, but as someone who experiences with, shall we say, psychedelics, as well as various different meditation, I understand the value of that kind of struggle, that you kind of go through, and that filtration that I suppose life can kind of put you through. For yourself, was there anything maybe personal that you or anyone in the band kind of experienced that made you want to transform that into the lyrics and kind of focus on this particular topic?
There are experiences like that, but I wouldn't want to give such examples, because it comes from personal life. I want to keep it personal. But thank you very much. I really appreciate the interest. But to be very honest with you, it's not. It's something. These experiences is not something that just showed up the last 5 years. It's been like that since I was a child, and
Lucifer's Child.
Lucifer's Child, yeah. since my father kicked me out of house. Yeah, I'm joking.
I see. Yeah.
So yeah, these experiences, man, is something that each one of us have experienced. Like each person individually can experience, have been to very difficult positions, and listening to our music is something that, as I said before, you should be able to imagine whatever satisfies your psychological needs, your spirit needs, or your spiritual needs, and what binds us is the dark. This is how I see it, and this is why I feel that someone who might listen to our lyrics or our songs would be able to feel like listening familiar, or reading something that speaks to his soul. And this is what I absolutely like to do with a band, not just playing music and just playing some random riffs and writing random lyrics about Satan and worshiping the devil, or blah 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 blah. Our music. Totally. I try to make the songs that speak to the heart of someone, and we'll be able to touch the heart of someone that the same way that our songs touched me when I listened to them, when I composed them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This is very true, man. And I'm glad to hear that, because the thing is, at the end of the day, I had a similar chat with my friend Phil from the band Abduction, great band here in the UK. And I said this to him. I said that, you know, if you look at it financially or logistically, playing black metal doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. Like,
Exactly. You are mad.
yeah, right? It's like, you know, from the amount of time it takes, from all the sacrifices and all of the heartache and the headaches and everything that comes with it, to go on tour and play in front of, you know, not that many people. Even if you play in front of a lot of people, there's still not a lot of money in that either. So you know, to when you put all of that together, it doesn't make sense to do it unless you have to do it, because it's in your heart, it's in your soul, it's in your system, and you need to pour it out into the world. So I'm happy to see that authenticity there between your words.
I guess we wouldn't be here talking about it if we weren't both having the same mentality, or anybody who's like keep on fighting for and performing and playing with his band, you know, and standing out there and sharing his beliefs and sharing his music. You know, if someone asks you why you do that, it's like, I'm mad and I'm doing it. I mean, there's no fucking sense. But the thing here is that it's not a hobby, as you said. It's a certain need to do this. You know, I would be completely depressed if I wouldn't be able to do it, and I get depressed when I don't do it, or I'm getting hectic with the daily routine, you know, or any other thing from the real life, because this world that we live with the bands and music, you know, it's a real fucking world, of course, but has nothing to do with how conservative things are out there and how terrible goes with the society and from time to time, what we experience, you know, what the changes and everything.
Yeah.
We try to make our music, do what we love, do what we need to do, and that's it. We are mad.
I want to bring this back to the concept of the destruction of the ego, which you talk about. I think this is extremely relevant here, and I actually hope there are some maybe younger people, because you and I think we're similar age. But I'm hoping that there's maybe someone a little bit younger, perhaps even listening to this. But anyhow, one thing that I kind of noticed, at least in myself, okay, you know, I'm a very self-analytical person. I'm always like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I feel this way? Why, you know, I always kind of like trying to figure these things out.
Why?
And one thing that I kind of noticed is that with music, the ego, I think, is like very heavily involved in this lifestyle, in the sense that going on stage, holding your head up high, pumping your chest out and playing some fucking kick-ass guitar solos to, like, you know, dozens, hundreds, thousands of people at times. There's like a big ego boost in that. But it's only a temporary one, because what I've noticed is that in the long run, you will face like some of the biggest humiliating factors in life just from doing music. I don't know if it's the same for you as well.
Exactly, my friend. Exactly. I couldn't agree more with what you say now. This is like the coin has two sides.
Yeah.
So what you said is a very beautiful example. Like, you could play a show in front of thousands of people, big festival or a big club show, and you play your solos and you have this ego boost at this point, which this type of boost that you get, of course, you are there, you are exposed, but sharing your music and playing your music in front of people that your music touched them somehow, this is a treasure, man. This is a treasure, man. When I say it, it's not about standing there and having someone taking photos of me. I don't give a fuck about it. I care for seeing people that in their eyes that something we do there truly touches them. And this is vital to, at least for me, to go up there. And I think it's the same approach for most of the extreme musicians I've ever met. They share similar mentality that we care about feelings more instead of just numbers, and this is why
Yeah.
we stick to this madness, because you might play, as you said, in front of thousands of people, and then you might end up like driving for 2 days all along, not being paid for performing in that many people, or paying very few pennies that they're not enough to pay your rent and your bills. So you kind of lose working days when you're out there and performing. So this is where you destroy your ego. Say, okay, fuck. At one point you're a king, and then you're a fucking peasant. And but that's fine. I mean, I prefer sticking outside this organized society theme. I try to keep in my studio, work around music, or at least have myself being involved in things that I'm able to create and to offer something. And trying to maintain a good spirit, and not being as fucking corrupt as I see the society turns nowadays.
This is super valid, man. I love hearing that, and I'm gonna kind of elaborate on why. You know, because these are very personal experiences for myself also, you know, like playing a show in front of a bunch of people and then getting recognition for what you're doing, and it's like, oh wow, I am somebody. And then you have to travel back home. It's Sunday rolls around, you get home, and then it's okay, and then when Monday comes up, it's like, oh, you're nobody again, you know? And then it's
Yes.
like,
yeah, you're me.
Yeah.
You're nobody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then I actually think that there's some kind of value in that, because I think that it makes you a much more robust person, in the sense that, you know, I think that it forces you to, first of all, appreciate the opportunities that you have to be
Exactly.
able to go out there and play this music, you know, so that even if the road isn't too kind, even if the numbers, if you will, aren't so good, but you're still getting the chance and the opportunity to do what you wanted to do. And, you know, and then it's kind of like, I find that the world almost works in a very transactional way. It's like, if you really want something, you can have it, but it just has a price. That's all, you know?
Exactly. You would be lying to yourself if you're not able to see that. And be able to recognize this contrast between real life and being also a musician and performing with your band. But this makes you more thirsty to get out there again and do it as soon as possible. You know, I at least in my opinion, like I really love touring. I really like playing with a band, and I feel in my natural environment in a way.
Yeah.
You know, this is how I prefer being in a backstage, in a dirty backstage with a few friendly bands, and having a good chat, and sharing the stage afterwards, instead of just sitting home and being into the fucking normal life, you know.
Yeah, I feel that, man. There's something. Oh, fuck yeah. Like, there's something, you know, like when you're on the road, you know, if you haven't like showered for like 2 days straight, you're at some random service station somewhere, you know, you don't even know where it is, and you don't even have signal on your phone to look on the maps to even see where you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
But just something about like walking around in that environment, and it's like 2 a.m, you look at the locals, you're different to all of them, and you can see them looking at you, but there's like a level of freedom and empowerment in that I, hand on heart, I can say I don't think I've experienced from anything else. It's just from touring that you really feel that.
Exactly, man. You reach places you would never imagine you would be able to reach. You stand in the middle of the night somewhere just to take a lick outside the bus or the van, and say, "What the fuck? This is a beautiful experience. What I'm seeing now. What is this landscape?" Or all this. Our mind reacts very differently when we are on the road. It's like you don't care about what's behind. You care about the people you leave behind, and you care about them being well. But for instance, me, I don't care about anything else when I'm on the road. I just live, there. And this experience, it's a magical experience that if you don't do it, you will never be able to recognize all this. And throughout this struggle and this suffering that you just said, like, you might stand in the middle of fucking nowhere, no signal, and sometimes maybe no cash, no nothing. Like, you're in a fucking debt when you start touring already. But this doesn't matter, and this is the power of the psychology, and how what you're doing speaks to your ego. And you love being there just for being there, and enjoying your life at most, and delivering what you do.
Do you know, I'm loving this, by the way, but do you know one thing that kind of keeps coming to my mind, and maybe this is just me, maybe it's not, but one thing that I kind of notice when I'm in that kind of situation is I did a little interview for a documentary that this guy who has an Iranian YouTube channel is making about us and all the years that we had in the underground in Iran and over here and everything. And at the very end of the documentary, he was like, "Have you got any final words?" And then without any preparation, I said to him the following, that when I reflect back on the last 15 years that we have been doing this, you can think of all the merch sales and the ticket sales and the tours and the bills and the lineups and all the accolades and this and that. Ultimately, at the end of it, the thing that is left is just some great memories. And that's really the only thing. It's that memory and the legacy that you take away that is the real quantifiable thing, which is, I think, to your point, like it's those times just chatting to people backstage, and then it's those times experiencing these things. But then from there, okay, so there's like a little slope here. You want to talk about ego death? Let's talk about literal death for a second here, because it's like, I don't know, for some reason that makes me think about the concept of death a lot. I can't quite rationalize why, but it just does, because it reminds me that, like, all those memories, they're the thing that you want to have the most of in life. But ultimately, at the end of it, like, how long do you continue? Are you gonna be touring when you're like 80 years old or 90 years old or something, And then how do these memories keep going on and on? They don't, Like, life just kind of moves on, and eventually you're not gonna be here. And that's a thought I kind of wrestle with a lot, I don't know if that's something that's occurred to your mind, I don't know if this is too morbid or what it is, but it's just something that I kind of think about a lot.
It's very realistic. I think it's very realistic, man. And I think lots of people think about that, might not be able to share it that open, as you say now. But sure. We talk about death and the experiences. Death is another passage, it's another chapter. And what you do, you leave a legacy behind. But the most important thing is how I see it, is live and be able to get and collect as much of this treasure I can collect until the end. If I'm able to tour and be there at the 80 years old, I want to do it. Mm-hmm. If my body follows, if I'm able to
sure.
do it. And of course, death is something that inevitably happens, and what's left behind is our work that through years might be forgotten, might be kept in someone's drawer, and then open the drawer and see like a Trivac CD and say, "Hey, I'm gonna play that. What's that?" It's a old black metal band. And this is very romantic, and this is beautiful. This is metal, and in general our rock music, this alternative art and the form of expression, this is the only thing that is able, I think, to do that and to preserve life after death. This is how I see it. I mean, it's so nice to hear that you think about this, because there are quite a few people that I've been discussing about, like from older bands to newer bands. This conversation ends up about, okay, and what I leave behind and what I leave behind. So what you leave behind, or what's going on, and what's going on with all these experiences. I mean, you just live, just experience. There is no must, at least in my ears, in my eyes. There's no must, or there's not something that you should do. And this is like creating these boundaries of aging, and that I won't be able to perform when I grow, or I won't be able to tour, or I should catch up with time and run and do this and do that. Fuck that shit. You do that because you do it from the heart and you love it at most, and you fight for it, and you really love experiencing these times, and this is what you're fighting for. Get back on the road and write music and share your music and share your emotions. And this is a fucking treasure. We might forget this from time to time, but something inside us says, I want to do it again, and I want to do it again. And this is how you renew that. You renew that constantly.
Absolutely, man. Fuck yeah. Beautifully put. Yeah, 100%, I think it's one of those things. I think that the perspective of the musician, especially not even just the musician, but the perspective of those who perform this style of music specifically, who get to see the shadow side of the world, because as you were saying this earlier when you were talking about the lyrics, saying that, it's almost like an unpleasant experience, but then you get to grow from that. To me, it comes back to the same thing I've always said, is that black metal or extreme metal is a form of musical shadow work. Okay, so you get to tap into the shadows and then the dark side of the human being and the dark side of yourself, the scary side that most people, when they look in the mirror long enough, they have to avert their eyes because they realize what's lying behind the glass, like there's a scary thing that's waiting there if you look at it long enough. But, I think that there's a beautiful value to that as well, because you get to embrace it, you get to almost cherish it, and also, like, as uncomfortable, embrace that discomfort, the mental discomfort, and
exactly,
and also knowing that ultimately at the end of it, things are finite. So so again, it's the legacy that you leave behind. Now, whether that legacy gets noticed or not, it's a different thing, because ultimately at the end of the day, this is something that it's funny you say that. When I was like a teenager, I was like, oh yeah, when I die, already at age 14, I was thinking that, oh yeah, one day I'm going to pass away and then people are going to like listen to my music. That's how I'll be remembered. Now I'm like, oh yeah, everyone who will ever hear my music is also going to die someday. Okay. And there's going to come a time where there's no electronics left. So even if you had a vinyl player, you can't fucking listen to it. So,
yeah, I hope vinyls will last forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing, like it's a terrifying, but actually kind of a beautiful thought if you really think about it, that is that, okay, so we have a very limited time, we kind of got here and we're very lucky to be here. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just make it what we can,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't overthink. I think sometimes we lose our concentration into overthinking and try to analyze and why. I mean, analyzing.
Well, I definitely do that.
This is a good thing. This is why you evolve, and this is why you progress, and you do things, and you act, and you progress.
Sure.
But this is not bad. But there is a balance. It's like the mix we were talking about earlier. There is a balance. You need to find the sweet spot when you say, okay, this is enough, and I need to move on.
Right.
With everything in life, I think this aspect, this is something that you could give it as an example to everything, balance. Of course, as we said before, we are mad people, and this is what we are mad people, There's no fucking balance when you say, okay, I'm gonna hop in the airplane and get into a van for 3 weeks and sit there 10 hours a day, play 40 minutes, 1 hour, and then jump in the van and drive again. You're totally fucking mad. But this insanity is what we love,
For sure. Well, we might be mad, but it's a mad world. So if anything, we're just surviving. Yeah.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Right on. So, so this concept of the purpose is very important to me, and I'm fascinated by it. And I kind of want to maybe focus on your kind of personal journey throughout this as well, because I think, obviously, as I mentioned before, the first I ever heard of you was obviously through performing on stage with Rotting Christ, and again,
okay.
A legendary Greek band, probably, in a way, maybe you could even say like the Metallica of Greece, in a sense. And, and obviously, I know that there's those early bands, with Rotting Christ and Varathron. And you did have that, but I think with Rotting Christ kind of like being more commercially like successful worldwide, even though they're still in an extreme metal scene. So obviously you're performing for the band, and I know that Lucifer's Child was born maybe around the similar time where you joined Rotting Christ as well, or maybe just before. Is that right? It's within the same years.
Yeah. So it was very similar. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was about like a year after I joined the band, or when we started touring. The first tour we had with Cradle of Filth and Goatseed and Rotting Christ, and on this tour I already grabbed the guitar and writing some riffs here and there, and the idea started in mind,
All right, very cool, man. And I suppose that must have been pretty fucking cool for yourself, I mean, Cradle, they'll get shit in the black metal scene, but they're still a massive band, with lots of influence. So that would have been a huge tour to be on, right?
Ooh, I love. Yeah, it was incredible. I was experiencing like a dream come true in many ways. A big tour and performing for the band, and performing with Rotting Christ, standing on stage next to Sakis and Themis was fucking great, very, very strong experiences. I loved it, and I loved working for it and being as much as open and offering my 100% there. So yeah, this is how it actually started. And funny thing here is that Lucifer's Child started like an idea, like as I said, grabbing the guitar in the backstage, playing a few riffs, and then I said, okay, I will go back home and maybe put the songs together and ask a bass player, a friend of mine, if he wants to come by the studio and help me and start something. And at this point was middle of the tour, and I had a talk. I've been in touch with Paul Allender, the guitarist of Cradle of Filth, like for quite some time, And from during the middle of the tour, he played me some demos that he wanted. He wanted to start a band with his wife at that time. And then we kept on talking about the idea of making a band together or a side project. And this is how actually, when we got back from tour, we started Lucifer's Child together.
Right.
I mean, but I mean, these are super early steps. It was just talking, and then we exchanged some demos, but then Paul couldn't follow up with the idea, and because he lived in the United States, he just got married. By that time, it was quite difficult from several things to be able to follow, the plan I had in mind, just to play shows and start touring with a band. But it's a funny inside story about how it got real, the idea from putting the band into putting the actual band together.
That's really cool, man. Interesting. I had no idea about that. And then I suppose at the end you were like, no PRS guitars allowed on my album.
No, fuck that.
Yeah, I am joking. Actually, he's got a great signature model. That's cool and
The best
interesting.
one.
So, yes, I agree with you on that. Yeah, 100%. A nice neck through as well. Anyway, that's just nerd guitar talk there. But
Yeah.
but the thing that's the reason why I kind of bring that up is obviously you were doing very good with them, and obviously with Rotten Christ, they're super busy band. I mean, they're playing literally all the time, and that's
Hard touring.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing, actually. That's what you want as a band. But one thing that I can personally say, because I've had experience playing for other bands. I don't know if you know the band Artemis, but I actually played for them some years ago.
Okay.
They're like very well known from Iran. Maybe not so much now because of activity, but like back in the day, they were kind of like the main band. Kind of similar to how like Rotten Christ are for Greece, like Artemis was kind of like that for Iran, but obviously we have like...
Yeah, I've heard of the band, definitely, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm talking about like 2013, so we're going back a while,
Okay.
Yeah.
10 years back.
But the thing that I always noticed is that there's one thing playing for someone else and playing their music, even if their legacy is great, even if the band is huge, but it's a completely other thing going on stage and playing your own music and your own material that you've kind of had to graft, and it's like the reward is totally different, So was this, I'm maybe making presumptions here, I don't know how you relate to that, but was this kind of the reason why you maybe decided to go and focus on your own thing? I don't know of the reasons of your separation, but I'm assuming it's perhaps along those lines. You can elaborate perhaps if you like.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It was one of the reasons, definitely. Like the need to create into something new that you have in mind, and playing in a band with such a long history come to a conflict, because you need to respect the history of the band, you need to respect the character of the band, and you already have some boundaries considering the creation. And also, I don't know if you know how Rotten Christ actually work, but it's Sakis is the main composer, and then when I joined the band, I actually helped a lot. I've done all of the recordings of the band, and actually did also a few mixes for them, and also played guitars in records and added some elements here and there.
That's right.
Yeah, and I've done that, but the need to create a song and perform it the way you imagine it on stage, it's something different when you're playing in a band with such legacy. You are there delivering songs that they've been written when I was 5 and 6 years old, and it's totally different compared to, as you said before, performing your music, your own creations, and this is something quite different. I loved Rotten Christ. I've been a fan of the band, and I'm still a fan of the band. We're in good conditions. We're good friends. But the necessity of working and not working, of putting out what I feel, it was stronger. And also, to be more realistic and speak the words out, it was so fucking hard maintaining a studio, Lucifer's Child, and Rotten Christ at the same time, simultaneously. It was very, very difficult, man. It was, something would go wrong. I don't know which of these three, but something would definitely go wrong. So I decided to step back from Rotten Christ by that time, like 6 years ago, and I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever taken. With heavy heart, of course, because I was living something that I really loved. I played in the band for 7-8 years, and I really loved touring with the guys. I really loved them. But it was very hard to maintain the situation and also progress and with Lucifer's Child and my studio. So I decided to put it aside and keep on doing what I do now.
Yeah, well, that's totally respectable, man. I commend your decision for that. And yeah, unfortunately, as I think, especially us musicians come to find out, there are not enough weekends or weeks in a year. First and foremost.
No, no, man, it
Yeah.
was crazy. I remember the year. I was thinking about it when we booked the Hellfest with Lucifer's Child, and I was very happy because it was the first major event that we booked us, and I was
Yeah.
very happy. And at the same time, I had two studio albums to record in the studio at this month, and also two shows in the same weekend with Hellfest. And I was trying to find a session guy to perform with Lucifer Child or Rotten Christ, just to find a guy who could help around. It was, and then I started thinking more seriously about what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
Because you need to organize things and take it seriously, because otherwise shit will hit the fan and will blow everywhere.
That's it. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we don't have clones of ourselves. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. I hope we don't.
Yeah, it seems like a convenient idea at first, I mean, listen, man, I relate to that, from being a fitness coach, doing this podcast, doing Trivex, but I also have two other musical projects that I work on as well, there's a lot of stuff, and I think we're both of the same ilk, where we don't mind being busy. But then there comes a point where it's like God of time, Cronus comes down, and it's like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? You're using up all your allowance.
Yeah, fuck, yeah. But I agree with that. But at the same point, diamonds are made under pressure.
Absolutely, fuck yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. I feel that. Well, listen, I'm very excited to kind of maybe see and hear a little bit more of what you're gonna do with Lucifer Child, and again, I can see that this is basically your passion project. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's kind of like the obvious,
it is.
really, but
yeah. It is my passion project. It's my life, actually. I wake up and sleep thinking of the band, and anything has to do with the band. I live through that,
Yeah, absolutely.
All this creating music and things for like imagining, standing on, like paint a new banner and play another solo on this part of the set, or play another riff and adjust something, all this creative, all this imagination, and the world that needs to be explored is beautiful. And other than doing that, I would be able to adjust if I was needed to do something different, of course, as every human would respectfully do. But I think this is it. This is my life.
Well, I respect it, man. I commend your dedication to it. You said something I kind of want to unpack a little bit there. Sorry, my voice is gone. Sorry, a little bug that's going around here. Something you said is very important, and I kind of want to maybe just unpack that a little bit more. You said, so obviously it's your passion project, it's your baby, and you mentioned that you keep imagining yourself on stage, right? That's very important. I'm going to explain why. Everything that we do in life is a product of imagination, okay? Yes. Anything and everything. If it's a house you want to build, if it's a sentence you want to say to someone, you imagine it in your head, and then it becomes a matter of execution.
Yeah, this is our consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's the fact that you think it, you see it first, not maybe with your naked eyes, but you see that thing, you see that vision of yourself on stage, holding the guitar, and then doing that moment. I think that there's something to being an artist that I just think it kind of like redefines a general approach to life to begin with, because you imagine a scenario, you imagine a situation, then you begin to build around it, you know. So like a song, you okay, I'll make an example of one of your own stuff. So one of the singles that you put out, Asbestia, okay. So when you've got the riff that's going, that the vocals keep chanting the song title over and over, that bit, I already know that's something in the studio. You're like, that's gonna be cool live, right? I can see that correctly. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is an absolute example of how you think. I don't fantasize myself with like photographers or like nothing to do with pop idols. Fuck that shit. I don't give a fuck. But I imagine myself on stage and doing what I imagine to do. You know, not taking photos or whatever. You know, like being exposed and being well known. I don't give a fuck about that.
No, it's the power of the moment.
Exactly, the power of the moment. And composing the new album is it's an album besides the spiritual concept theme and lyrical theme and songwriting. Songwriting is very linked to live performances. I want to write music that I'm able to headbang and do it on stage. You know, I don't want to think complicated. I mean, there might be a few parts that I say, oh fuck, I need to watch out here, you know, not make a mistake. You know,
sure.
But I really enjoy this vibe. You know, not writing songs that I will be able to perform the best possible way on stage. And this is a very good example of imagination, as you say. You know, this is the things you imagine. Fantasy is something that we need to maintain during these hard times. That struggle of working and always we need to always catch up with a deadline. We have stressful daily routines. We experience life in very gray zones, and this fantasy and these imaginations is it's actually life. This is what I think. The rest is just a process, you know, something very typical. This is where we start living, you know, and start imagining creation. This is what we were born to create.
That song, Asbestia in particular, when I was listening to that, obviously it's a different key, but then I think just from the drum pattern and the kind of groove that was in the song, I was like, oh yeah, this kind of reminds me of Bathory's Enter the Eternal Fire. And then I was like, oh yeah, shit, you guys actually covered that song.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was like a fun little realization, but they just kind of cool, like kind of Bathory, you know, like simple, just a chord vibe to it, you know. It was pretty cool, man.
I'm very happy to hear so. This is, if you could say that you can listen and the influence there on one song, this is it. You know, this is a song with the strongest influence from another band, Bathory. I love Bathory. I cannot avoid I cannot avoid this triplet and the simple riffing and just hand banging through a nice heavy metal riff, man. I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah. Did you ever get to see any of those Bathory tribute shows, like the one they did at Beyond the Gates?
No, but I watched, not in live, but I watched the videos and it sounded fucking great. You know, I loved it. You know, a great solid team there. Eric from Watain and Rune also. It's incredible musicians performing Bathory, and they love it. And I actually toured with Twilight of the Gods. I don't know if you remember this band. It was a project from Alan of Primordial.
Yeah, of course,
Nick
I remember.
Parker, and also Rune was playing there. This is when we met first time on tour, and they were insanely good. You know, they did this more epic songs from the Bathory albums, like Twilight of the Gods and
Hammerheart and all that.
Yeah, and the Hammerheart, and I absolutely love this. I love Bathory. I think it's my biggest influence ideologically, and how they never had any fucking boundary. How Quorthon didn't didn't limit himself on creation and how he switched the band's music from time to time and expressing himself. But this is another thing. And it's actually very nice to hear, to see this tribute. These are songs that they really need to be performed and people to listen live. It's very necessary.
Yeah, well, I was there, man. I was like right there when they did that show. Yeah.
You are at the Beyond the Gates?
At Beyond the Gates in Norway, yeah, Bergen, last end of August, I believe. Fuck, it was a vibe, man. It was a hell of a vibe there. Obviously, it was cool seeing all the vocalists. I think Eric did a fantastic job with that song, actually, Entered Eternal Fire. And he also came back out and did Blood, Fire, Death. I think that's actually the song they finished with, if I remember correctly. But yeah, they were all doing very good. My friend Bjorn, he went up there, and I don't know if you know Bjorn, but he fucking ripped up the stage there, and he destroyed the mic stand. That's not the only time I've seen him do that, but it was pretty fucking cool, man. Pretty cool.
It sounds. I'm jealous I was not there already. Fuck. Yeah.
Well, it looks like they're doing a bunch more of those shows. I can see that they've started to get booked to quite a few festivals now.
I saw that. I'm happy. I hope I will be able to catch them on some show, on some festival during the summer. Yeah. I really want to see that.
Absolutely. What very pleasantly surprised me, because they had the different vocalist guests coming in and doing the show. One of, I think, their actual best vocalist they had was just Apollyon himself, playing bass and doing the vocals. He just, for whatever reason, just had the vibe nailed down. If you wanted to imagine Bathory actually playing live, I feel like he just, with his voice and the general on-stage demeanor, perfect, absolutely perfect.
Yeah, incredible musician, man, and very, very strong mind on how to deliver. And this is why you see it and you say, fuck, this is how it would look like if they were on stage and do it,
That's it, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's cool for us having this conversation. Why? Because I think, my friend Beza told me this many years ago, and he said that, you'll have people who are artists and who play this music and who do the tours and have big fan bases and big followings. But ultimately, all the real ones are always fans at the end of the day,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you start like that when you listen to metal, and then you think of grabbing a guitar because you want to play like someone you idolize, or you build your own idols, you build your own gods when you get into metal, and you want to look like them or sound like them, or during the way you discover, maybe some of us discover a part of ourselves that want to grab an instrument, and start learning, and because you want to be like Hawthorne or anyone that inspires you.
Was there anyone in particular that kind of inspired you to want to pick up the guitar when you were younger?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're the first bands I ever listened was Iron Maiden.
Cool.
I wanted to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Number one.
So which one of the guitarists? Which one of the guitarists was it that you looked at? Oh,
you mean as a guitarist?
Yeah, sure.
Tough question, man. Tough question. I would say Smith. I would say Smith.
Correct answer.
Yeah, I would say Smith. But man, the era I started listening to Iron Maiden, they were already all three of them on stage and playing. So by that time, I was not digging into the credits of the albums. I was just listening to the music, and I was like, "Fuck, I really want to play the guitar and sound like that, And this is how it basically. This is how I actually got into metal with and black classics. Because I think that's most of us got into into listening to heavy metal and then to extreme metal.
Oh yeah, well, 100%, man. For me, it was Metallica from day one, and then Iron Maiden were like the second band that kind of came after that, and then it's basically game over from there. 5 minutes later, you're listening to Mayhem, and then your life is become about something else, and then the next thing you know,
Yes.
the next thing you know, 20 years has gone by, and then you're sat down talking to George from Lucifer's Child on a podcast.
Exactly. This is how life unfolds its beauties.
Absolutely. But one thing I can say to you, man, and this is obviously commend to your own work ethic, because you are a fucking hardworking individual, and I love not just your humility as a person and as an artist as I'm speaking to you, but also the sheer amount of reps and the hard work that you've put into it. And if you think about it, in the last, should we say, like 5, maybe 10 years, I think your sound is has maybe become one of the pillars of the Greek scene as a whole. And what do I mean by that? Yes, there's the stuff you did with Rotting Christ, and then there's the Lucifer's Child stuff, but then there's also everything you've done with Your Theoria, and there's everything that you did with, this is actually a very important one, recording the very last Necromantia album after, obviously, Baron Blood passing away. You know, that album's a big fucking deal, and obviously you did all the guitars on that. So and then obviously helping the Magus, George, with his own kind of like solo record. He's a great fucking guy, by the way. He's one of my favorite guests I've had on the show. And he's been very supportive of us as well, which I'm quite humbled by. But that's a big deal that, you know, you've basically got your signature sound all over those like really important records as bands, as well as obviously your own stuff. So that must feel pretty surreal to have obviously grown up in the scene and then now be like such a big part of it, right?
I love it. I love it. I hope I didn't disappoint anyone with the sound. You know, it's something
Sure. I don't think you did, man.
Yeah, man, it's mind blowing. You know, when I got a call from George, and he told me like, "Hey, man, I need you to. I mean, let's talk about something. You know, I have this idea, and it's a farewell to Baron Blood. I want to make an album. Would you like to join me and make the album together and write the songs and, you know, do all the process, write music together and put it in the studio and release that?" And it was, man, I had goosebumps because Necromantia hasn't been it. I don't know how much you cannot listen it to Lucifer's Child as an influence, but it's a band that I grew up listening to when I got into the Greek black metal. Besides Rotting Christ, Varathrone was. I loved Necromantia, and maybe this is a guilty pleasure to say, but I think Necromantia was maybe my most favorite in like Scarlet Records. Man, I
Sure,
couldn't
right.
believe, what the fuck did they think, and how the hell did they create such albums? You know?
Yeah.
And
Well, it's that song
it was incredible.
it's that song they've got, you know, the creepy one. What is it? The Warlock?
The Warlock.
Yeah, holy shit. That's a fucking creepy song. It's not even a song.
Yeah. And
but I imagine listening to that like on tape or something as a kid and just like shitting your pants or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very horrific atmosphere and horrifying atmosphere, and very unique. How did they dare to get the bass and play like only the bass? And I really appreciate the extremity, lyrically, musically wise, and how forward, how big they were in the idea. You know, they as a band, you know what they crafted as artists.
Especially
by that time,
back then. Especially back then.
Yeah, especially back then, where there was no influence like that. You know.
Yeah.
There was no influence to grab onto something and develop it. It was just raw fucking thoughts that they put into the studio and let's make it. And it's impressive. I really admire the freedom and the balls they had to do Necromantia. And also, as you mentioned, Your Theoria, it is actually, this is how I met Better George, because I've worked in the studio with previous Rotten Christ member Jim Mutilator,
Mhm.
and
Jim's been on the podcast as well, by the way. I had him on about a year
really?
ago. Yes, yeah. Great guy. Great guy.
Great guy. And
I know that's not his real
He-
name, but that's a different thing.
Mutilator, yeah.
Yes.
It's a nickname. It's a nickname. So yeah, this is how I met with George in the studio when he came to record the vocals for Euphoria. We were midway to the process, and this is how we got up. We got friends, and we stick around each other. You know, we've always been in touch. I feel very comfortable with him doing things in the studio, and in general, I feel very lucky because you mentioned something about the Greek scene, or our scene at least, and what the new extreme bands or some old bands come to me in my studio to make their new record. This is a gift, man. I couldn't imagine a better way of living here. You know, this is I'm really satisfied with what I do.
Yeah.
I'm really happy.
That's awesome
And,
to hear, man. That's nice.
Contributing to, you know, something, put a small stone in the scene, you know, just to be here and work and try to develop things and make it stronger, make some records that we will be able to listen to them 20 years after, like we listen to Non Serviam or Lycanthropy or what, you know, many good records we listen now that they were produced 30 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one very cool thing as well, you know. And the thing is, if someone, it's like you almost need a time machine to really appreciate those albums for what they are as well. Because in the case of Non Serviam, if you listen to that now, it's a very cool record if you put it in the context of what it was. But if you hear it without knowing what it is or when it came out, maybe it's kind of like, okay, maybe it's not as impressive as it should be. If you hear it live, yeah. So the live version sounds pretty fucking tight and cool. But on the album, it's obviously all over the place. But actually, that's a part of the novelty, and that's part of what makes it legendary, you know, is that lack of access to equipment and obviously not even close
Drum
to
machine.
anything. Yeah, the drum machine, no internet, no MIDI maps, no click track, no, if you fuck up, you go back and record it again. None of that. You know, it's just pure, raw assembly of music, basically, by a bunch of young guys.
Assembly of music. Exactly. And assembly of beauty, of so good songs, you know. This is when you break down and you don't give that much priority to the sound, and you just listen to the songs, you know. This is where you get into the album really, and lyrically and musically is a diamond. I think it's maybe the best black metal album a band has put out from Greece. I think this album it's not about as you said, it's not about how good it was produced sound-wise or how good is shitty equipment, very old, and in some occasions they borrowed equipment to be able to record their music. And this is the fucking real deal, you know. This is how much love and how much effort was put in the album, and you can hear the songs how strong they are.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And I have to say, on the other side of the token, I do also, this is kind of part of what makes me appreciate like the live rendition of Societas Satanas, for example. You know, I know you did the mix for one of the live versions, I think, that you guys did together. And it's cool because you get to hear what it was supposed to sound like, you know?
Yeah, yeah. For some reason, when I listen to the new mix that I've done compared to the old one, I dislike it because I was listening first the older version, so I got used to it, and now it sounds too clean to me. Yeah, and of course, the new version is where what they would want to be able to produce in the studio, and they weren't able to do so. So
Yeah.
At least this is what they say to me when they come in the studio and start mixing. This is how
Yeah.
we would like to have it back in the day, but we were not. We didn't have the equipment, we didn't have the knowledge, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But at least I was lucky enough to stand on stage to perform these songs and then mix them in studio. It was brilliant, brilliant.
Well, absolutely, man. Can I ask you a question? Maybe, and maybe this is me being little bit too nosy, but the guitars for that, were they later re-recorded in the studio?
No, I've edited, but I haven't re-recorded. I've edited guitars. Like there might be like a wrong chord or a stronger chord hit from Sakis because he sings and sometimes he hits the guitar harder, or sometimes he just leave it open. So I decided instead of having no sound in one guitar or out of tune, like a copy paste from the first verse, because all songs are quite repetitive. Like there is an A-B form composing wise. So I decided like copy here and like fix this, or some pitch shift, like there is a version of the song, I think from Kilkim Zaibu live or whatever, it's, and when they sent me the draft, the first one, I don't think it was Societa Satanas or Noctisera. Anyway, it was, I'm getting into how much we edit or not edit or re-record the live music we perform. And like, I don't want to re-record, but I prefer doing some small edits here and there, so it should sound good, not fake, because sitting in the studio and just playing it like that, that's no live. There's no dirt in there. There is no dirt. So
I completely appreciate
I've done some
that.
editing.
Yeah.
I've done some editing, but not re-recording. Some pitch shifting, yes. Also, like I had a bend that it wasn't that accurate. I had to tune it up like 30,
Sure.
0.30, 0.30, something like that,
Yeah, that's fairly standard stuff. I hope you will excuse my my prudence and
Nah, there's no prudence there. No, man, I prefer talking about these subjects openly instead of having this secret like they didn't or they did or whatever,
But there's one thing, some bands like go one way where they edit the whole thing, and then some bands go the other way and then don't edit it at all. I think like having a middle ground there is maybe balanced. But I don't know if you listened to the Bathory tribute that the Watain did. First of all, like really cool fucking gig. The one they did back in, I think, was it Sweden Rock 2011, something like that. But there's a couple of songs on there where the guitars are a little bit, not
off. Yeah, off. Not little, a lot.
Like a lot. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Lot.
Like I kind of like, in a way I respect the fact that they were like, I don't know what's the thought process behind it. I'm only making presumptions here, of course. But I kind of thought, okay, that's kind of cool. Maybe, just you got that printed on a vinyl and it's maybe not right, but I guess it's better than fucking with it and trying to recreate the moment. So I kind of respect it for that reason. But then there was also the perfectionist side of me that was like, ooh, I don't think I would have left that there, It's a weird one.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to hear anything less from Watain or anything more,
That's
Which
true.
band, if you judge that, like you say, okay, who's performing now? Watain, and what are they? What are they delivering? And it was I think it was perfectly recorded and perfectly delivered because it has all the attitude of the band. And it has all the sloppiness and tightness and the beauty of the extremity they have as a band, And I really like, what to expect and from who, and because they are a very solid band live, but they also maintain this raw black metal style and attitude on playing, which is not very mechanic, not very, follow always the click track and blah blah blah. They have this more. They're more free, so I like it. I don't know if I was doing it with Rodenkreis or Lucifer's Child if I would keep this wrong notes in there, but I fucking love it when I hear it from them.
Yeah, sure. I feel you on that. I'm glad to hear your take. I think that kind of solidifies my position on it a bit more, because like I said, it was just one of those. I was just so on the fence, like, wow, like, because to me, like, I get, if it's like, it feels like the more something gets printed and replicated as a band, the more it's outside of your control. And then the crazy control freak in me just kind of wants to reel it back. And it's like, oh, let me fix it before I send it out. But it does take balls and bravery just to put it out there, even if there is fuck ups, I guess, right?
Yeah, it takes a lot of balls when you want to share, like when you want to express and be yourself 100%, and it's nice because you see lots of like, it's the easiest thing to go record a live album in the studio and then produce it and put it out as a live album, and it's completely fake. And we get used to listen to perfectly shaped albums. I work in the studio. I know what's the band's needs or demands and what's the standards that we set for ourselves in the in metal and extreme metal and black metal nowadays. It has nothing to do with early scene and this character. It's something that needs a lot of treatment nowadays, a lot of hard work to be able to catch up with the time period we make records now. So hails to Watain for doing that, and maintaining the fucking good character, and staying true to their identity.
For sure, man, for sure. Now, I tell you what, I share the same sentiment there wholeheartedly, for sure. Amazing. George, my man, this has been really fucking cool. I appreciate the fuck out of you coming on here. Maybe we can do a round 2 together at some point in the future, maybe in person, who knows. But just to kind of like wrap things up here nicely for people, just tell us a little bit what to keep an eye out for Lucifer's Child. When's the album coming out, and what are your plans?
Thanks for asking. We put out their Illuminant, our third full-length album, on 28th of March via Agonia Records, and our European tour starts during April. Our first show starts in Germany at Darkister Metal Meeting Festival, where we're going to present the first songs from the new album, and then we take it from there to a few other festivals in Europe and possibly Latin America during next autumn. So I hope to see all the maniacs on the road and have a good chat and enjoy ourselves in a fucking concert, bang our heads, have a lot of beer, and this is it. Actually, this is the plan, man. Play, have some beers, and meet the new guys who want to join our evil litanies.
That sounds like a pretty good fucking plan, man. I have to say, that sounds fucking killer. Amazing, man. Let's make some good memories. Okay, George, brother, appreciate the fuck out of you. Thank you so much for coming on here and for your time. And to everyone else listening to the podcast, go and support Lucifer's Child with the new album, The Illuminant, off of Agonia Records. And we will see you on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations. Bye-bye.